Let me walk you through 4 different people. Robert is 68. He spent his entire life working consistently, doing what was expected of him. Back in the 1980s, he bought a comfortable house in the suburbs, raised his family there, and from the outside, it really looked like he had everything under control. And to be fair, for a long stretch of his life, he actually did. Karen is 52. She has 2 children, a stable career in marketing, drives a good car, and takes a proper vacation every year. If you saw her life online, if she even posted it, you'd probably assume she's doing very well. Then there's Marcus, 38. Forget the stereotypes people joke about. This guy put in the work, paid off his student loans step by step, watched his friends get ahead buying houses he couldn't afford, and spent his weekends going out, having brunch, taking short trips. Because honestly, what exactly was he supposed to be saving for? And finally, Zoe, 24. She's active on TikTok, runs a small side hustle, owns all the trending items, and she's already started investing just a few months ago. She's probably the most financially aware 24-year-old her family has ever seen. 4 individuals. 4 different decades. 4 completely different financial situations. And yet, every single one of them ended up falling into the exact same trap. Not something similar, not something loosely connected. The exact same pattern, just dressed differently depending on the era. And by the end of this, you'll likely recognize which version you're currently living in. So what is this trap really about? Before I explain it, I want to make something very clear. This has nothing to do with being careless with money. Most people who fall into it are actually quite responsible. They budget. They think before spending. They try to make smart decisions. That's exactly why the trap is so hard to notice. At some point in every generation's story, the world around them quietly defined what doing well was supposed to look like. A certain type of home, a certain type of lifestyle, a certain type of experience. And no one explicitly sat you down to explain it, but you still absorbed it anyway. We all did. It slowly came through the people around you, the culture you grew up in, the things that were praised, the things that were admired. And when you finally reached a point where you could afford that version of success, you stepped into it. It felt natural. It felt like the next logical step forward. This isn't about greed. It isn't about being reckless. You were simply following the unwritten rules that your generation passed down to you. Rules that no one questioned because everyone else was following them too. And here's what makes it especially difficult to recognize. From the inside, it never feels wrong. It feels responsible. It feels like progress. So let's walk through each generation and look for the moment those invisible rules showed up. Because once you recognize it in someone else's story, you'll start to see it in your own life. Robert grew up watching his parents rent their entire lives. They never owned property. And during that time, especially after the war, owning a home became the ultimate symbol that you had made it. It represented stability, security, and status all at once. It was the dream. So when Robert got his first stable job and the bank approved him for the largest mortgage he qualified for, he took it. Of course he did. That was exactly what you were supposed to do. That was the move. And during the 1980s, it actually made sense. Interest rates were high, but inflation was also high. Property values were rising, and that house genuinely increased in value over time. Today, Robert's house is worth several times what he originally paid. On paper, he looks wealthy. But this is where things become complicated. Robert is now 68, and most of his wealth is tied up in the house he lives in. He doesn't have the pension he once expected, especially after changes in his company years ago. He has some savings, but not enough to comfortably support decades of retirement. And selling the house would mean leaving the place he's called home for most of his life. The house itself wasn't the trap. The belief that the house was the entire financial plan, that was the trap. Robert spent decades maintaining the appearance of wealth, the home, the upgrades, the maintenance, while not building enough outside of it. The result looked solid, but the foundation underneath had weaknesses. Karen's situation is quieter and in some ways more difficult to spot because it didn't happen all at once. It happened through many small, reasonable decisions. Her generation grew up believing they would do better than their parents, earn more, achieve more, have more. And they did. That part worked. But here's what followed. Every time Karen's income increased, her lifestyle expanded alongside it. Promotion at 32, upgraded the car, higher sale high. And if you're part of his generation, it's important to acknowledge something first. The system genuinely shifted in ways that made things harder. The 2008 financial crisis disrupted early careers and delayed progress for many people. That matters. But here's the trap that followed. When traditional milestones like owning property became harder to reach, people started focusing on what they could afford instead. Experiences, travel, food, concerts, subscriptions, convenience. And the culture supported this completely. Messages like, live your life, experiences over things, money isn't everything, became dominant. Marcus followed that path. And to be fair, he created great memories. But now, at 38, he has very little invested, no major assets, and a quiet sense of concern about the future. Something he often avoids thinking about by planning the next experience. The problem wasn't enjoying life. The problem was replacing long-term building with short-term experiences. And being told that was actually the smarter way to live. Now, Zoe. She's different. Her generation is more financially aware than any before. They understand investing early, they know about index funds, they talk about compound growth casually. So you'd expect them to avoid this entirely. But their version is different. For them, success is visual. It's about how things look, the outfit, the setup, the apartment, the brands. Zoe invests a small amount every month, and that's a great start. But she also spends significantly more maintaining an image that looks like success online. The trap here isn't lack of knowledge. It's performance. Knowing the right things, but focusing more on how it appears than what it actually builds. So again, 4 people, 4 decades, 1 underlying pattern. What does it actually look like to avoid it? People who escape this tend to do the same thing. They separate appearance from reality. They accept looking less successful in the short term so they can actually become more secure in the long term. They delay upgrades. They spend below their means. And they consistently invest the difference into things that grow over time. It's not complicated, but it goes directly against human instincts, because naturally, we all want to feel like we've made it. For Robert, it would have meant building wealth outside his home. For Karen, allowing income to grow faster than lifestyle. For Marcus, balancing experiences with consistent investing. For Zoe, focusing more on actual numbers than online presentation. If you want one simple rule, it's this. Assets first. Lifestyle second. Not forever. Just until your assets are strong enough to support your lifestyle naturally. That's what every generation that got this right eventually figured out. Robert, Karen, Marcus, Zoe. None of them are irresponsible. None of them are bad with money. They simply followed what success looked like in their time. But they prioritized looking successful instead of actually becoming secure. So here's the question I want you to think about. Which version of the trap are you living in right now? Is it the house holding most of your wealth? The lifestyle that grew with your income? The experiences that replaced long-term building? Or the image that looks like success without fully creating it? Think about it. Because the first step to getting out of any trap is recognizing it.